Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. We have now passed the halfway mark in Tour de Fleece 2024, and at least in my case, I can see my pile of fiber getting smaller. I have managed to spin all the fiber I had planned to spin to this point on time. I have had to rearrange and spin a couple fibers in one day, ply a bunch on another day, but I am meeting my goal of getting 21 fibers spun in the 23 days of Tour de Fleece. I've decided to come to this video today without my spinning wheel though. I have some show and tell of the fibers that I've spun, and I have a topic that is close to my heart that I like to share during Tour de Fleece, and I know I shared it in the past, but I wanted to share it again. It is close to my heart because it is tied to how I got into spinning and why I love spinning. So first, let's start with the fun show and tell, and then we'll chat about this topic that I find close to my heart. So, as I said, I have been, put away the noisy bag, I have been reaching my goal of spinning the 21 fibers that I had, 21 colors that I had prepared. I did run into a little bit of difficulty around the time of the first challenge day, the first rest day, because as I've mentioned, I had, in my last video I mentioned, I had family, I've had friends over, it was a major holiday, and I decided to kind of take it a little bit easy and enjoy all of this other activity. But because I made a challenge that was actually less spinning than I would normally do in Tour de Fleece, or Tour de Fleeces in the past, I knew that I could do these 1 ounce colors in a specific amount of time, and that if I ran into a little difficulty, I could spin more than one of them in a day. So I had to do a little fiddling around and readjusting, but so far this is my little bundle of fibers, not including my test spin that I had before Tour de Fleece. I'm loving the finished product. These have now been wet set, and in the end, it looks like, even though some of them aren't quite as finely spun as others, as in smooth, I think I am keeping them all around 20 wraps per inch. That's the goal. I think I would have liked to have spun them a little bit thinner than that when I first started thinking about this project, but that 20 wraps per inch really felt comfortable with this specific fiber, this Romney. Wanted to make sure you see that there's actually 2 blues that I've actually spun. It's so wonderful to see the difference. 2 different dye colors, but my rainbow's coming together. There's 2 greens. I have this pink sand here. It's coming together. So I'm meeting my goal. It does require a little adjustment. I suspect that going into this last little over a week of spinning, I will probably have to adjust a little bit, have to maybe spin a little bit more one day to compensate for a little bit less another day. Plus, as you notice, I have all those plied. I didn't leave specific days for plying other than maybe having really long days on the challenge days or spinning on my rest days. So I am meeting my goal. I do think I still can accomplish. It looks like, and that's what's really interesting. So that's what's spun. That's what's waiting to be spun. Oh, I have a couple more bobbins that have been spun already, but they haven't been plied. I didn't bring them over for the camera. It's funny how that looks like so much larger pile than this does. This looks so tiny. That looks so large. But that is actually less than half of the total yarn that I had planned specifically to spin. I do have two of the bundles of fiber that I did for the exhaust. I do have those. I do have the combing waste that I've carded up. So I have plenty of extra fibers, but I think just getting that done is going to be more than enough, and everything else can wait until August when the Olympics is going on, and I'll spin it then. But I am going to, it looks like I'm going to meet that goal. Keeping Tour de Fleece in perspective this year, keeping my mindset on what my challenge was, what my goals were, that has been one of the big challenges. As I said in my last video, that's been one of the big challenges of this Tour de Fleece for me. But one of the things that happens that I notice in every year, I hear it in the different groups and the chatter, is we start to reach about this point, and sometimes the communication, the sharing, all the posting maybe dwindles down a little bit. People start getting tired. Some people have to pull out of Tour de Fleece because they've had an injury or something's gone on in their home life. And one of the things that I start to see a trend of during this time is people having that conflict between meeting the goal and taking care of themselves. When I started spinning, I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. I had gone through a period of time in which there was real concern that I had about being able to do the things I love to do, like quilting and knitting and crocheting, and there was a real concern that I might lose the ability to do all of those things. I had lost a lot of my motor control. I had lost a lot of my range of motion. My quality of life had taken a real hit. And spinning was one of the ways, was the biggest way of me regaining that quality of life, little by little. I had read an article in, I believe it was the Spin-Off magazine at the time. I read an article in which a woman who was a spinner talked about, and actually I think it was written, no, it was a woman who had been, had reached a state of complete disability and wasn't able to really function by herself and on her own. And she wrote this wonderful, very touching, very, for me, very moving account of how her home health care aide had been a spinner and came to her home as to keep her company during the long hours of the day when she didn't have family members there, came to her home with her spinning wheel. And she would watch this caregiver spin yarn on that spinning wheel. And she'd watch the wheel go around and around and around. And little by little, she found herself changing. She found her brain quieting. And one day, she asked to try. She worked towards that goal. The long story, made short, is that rhythmic motion of watching the spinning wheel shifted something in her and motivated her to try this spinning of the wheel. She worked her way back to mobility. She worked her way back to health, all through the use of a spinning wheel. And that really moved me because that article arrived at a time in which I had been diagnosed finally. I was trying to, little by little, work my way back. And I had hope because somebody else had been down that path and shared it. And it gave me hope. It gave me confidence. I wasn't just having a dream that it might happen, but there was now an example of somebody else had been able to do this. Now, we all have our own things, our own challenges, our own mountains to climb. None of us have the exact situation, exact scenario as someone else. But when we share our story, and that's what Tour de Fleece is really about, sharing our stories, sharing our journey. When we share our story, and we share our story with an honesty and a compassion and an empathy for others and for ourselves, we find ourselves regaining so many times things that we feel like we lost. And sometimes it's just regaining a moment of quiet, a moment of peace, a moment of calm. Sometimes the spinning wheel helps us find something we lost, that maybe we just lost it through a busy day at work, or maybe we lost it through a hectic time of life or a challenging time of life. And for me, the spinning wheel, much more so than my quilting or my knitting or my crochet or any of the other wonderful things that I do, my spinning wheel still to this day helps me regain that moment of calm. When nothing else will work, the spinning wheel and that motion, turning of the wheel, helps me regain the calm. So I wanted to share that with you because as we reach this point of where we're past the halfway mark, it's easy to forget why we spin. And all of us spin for a different reason. But as I just wrote recently in a comment on Ravelry, I spin for my health. The yarn is a happy byproduct. And I don't want to lose sight of that when I'm trying to accomplish a mountain of spinning. When I try to accomplish the big challenges, I have to always remember that I spin for my health, for my joy. But I share it so that maybe, just maybe, somebody else finds something that helps them with their journey. So this is very dear to my heart. It is a subject that I don't want to ever forget to bring up during these big events, because it is easy to lose sight. I am definitely someone who in the past have said, oh, I've got to spin 2 pounds, or I've got to spin 4 pounds, and I have actually accomplished that a couple times. I loved when we used to have Spinzilla and spending a week trying to spin as much as we can. I love thinking back to the month that I scoured and I carded and I spun and I knitted the fiber for a whole entire sweater, all in 1 month. In a 30-day period. My fingers were taped up like an athlete's fingers. I was sore. I was wounded. I pushed myself. I accomplished my goal, and I suffered for it. But it was for a purpose that was worth the sacrifice. I loved doing Spinzilla, even if it made it so that I hurt afterwards. I loved the years that I said, okay, I'm going to try to spin 4 pounds or 5 pounds or see how many pounds I can do. And I love the years in which I spin a small, contained amount. I love all of them because of the challenges I made for myself, the goals that I accomplished, but because I always balanced the effects with the results. I knew going into them, I might come out wounded, injured, in pain, but there was a specific thing I was aiming for. I always went into them understanding what I was asking of myself, what I was trying to accomplish. This year, because of the extraordinarily exhausting events that I have not had any control over since the last Tour de Fleece, I wanted to go into this Tour de Fleece remembering to rest and remembering to breathe. It wasn't about quantity. It wasn't even really about quality. It was about the joy of the spinning, watching the spinning wheel turn. And I am happy to report that I'm well on my way, but I also have to report that if I wasn't having physical therapy, I might have more energy to spin more, but I also wouldn't feel as good about it all because I am becoming so much aware of how I let things build up. I let the pain, the stiffness, I let my brain put aside taking care of the squeaky wheel, you might say, for too long. Now, because I'm doing the physical therapy, because I'm trying to make myself a little bit healthier, I hurt. I'm just going to put it out there. I hurt. There's not much of me that doesn't hurt, but it's hurt that is a good hurt now. It's not the constant hurt that I sometimes have. I've managed, and this is, I really want to share this, especially for those of you that follow me. And I know a lot of the ones that just want to watch the spinning, they'll have tuned out by now. But for those of you that follow me regularly, I just want to tell you this. I have definitely had a lot of exhaustion and pain because I'm spinning a lot and I'm doing physical therapy twice a week at the office, and then I'm doing the exercises at home as well. But despite all of that, I've managed to not put myself into a fibro flare. And for those of you that know about fibromyalgia and the fibro flares, you will know that is a pretty big accomplishment. I have allowed myself rest. I have kept the perspective balanced. And despite the fact that my body knows it's going through exercises that it hasn't done in a long time, that it's moving in ways that it thought it no longer could move, and I'm still spinning, despite all of that, despite all of the things that I can't control in my children's lives, in my husband's life, in the world around me. Despite all of that, I am, and I'm going to knock on some wood, I'm keeping it in perspective. I'm keeping the balance. So while I am tired and I have to use a lot of ice packs to get through all of this, it's a huge accomplishment that I have found, at least at this time, with so much support and help from people both here in my Virginia world, in my family, and in my virtual world. All the support and camaraderie that I get with all of that, with all that support and with all my effort, I've been able to keep that balance. And that's huge. That's really huge. Will I be able to replicate it? I don't know. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But for me, doesn't matter what these next days with Tour de Fleece bring. I already feel like I'm wearing the yellow jersey. I already feel like I'm winning this race. So that is my message to you. As you go through these next days, and as you go through life, don't lose that perspective. Don't let someone else's bad day derail you. Don't let someone else's negativity take away your joy. Watch that spinning wheel spin. Whether it's the wheel or the spindle or just the bobbin in the e-spinner. Watch it spin. Find your joy. Find your peace. And hold on to it. Don't let anyone steal that away from you. There are a lot of things in our lives we can't control. But we can control that one thing. We can get up, shake ourselves off, and watch that wheel spin. Despite the negative people in the world who try to stop us, that get in the way of our journey. So I wish you all the best unwinding with fiber and fabric. And for those of you that I know are out there that do other crafts, I know you understand the message that I'm sharing. Because those of you that follow me to the end of every video, I know you know what I am talking about. I thank you for your support, and I hope to have another video out at the end, so another week, near the end of this wonderful Tour de Fleece. Until then, happy unwinding with fiber and fabric, and blessings to you all.